Almost every family in Surry County has been touched by addiction in some manner. Everyone seems to have a story about someone in despair. But you know, there's an equal number of good stories about people in recovery. Many have rejoined our community as productive members. The journey to recovery is difficult, but recovery increases human potential, reunites families, strengthens our workforce, and improves our community. In this first of 4 episodes of Surry, The Road to Recovery, we'll hear from persons in recovery and professionals about their experiences and their insights.
The best way you can help yourself or help others is to talk about it. It has to be talked about. The worst thing anyone can do is hold it inside. You know, I've got a pretty big position in the county. But I'm not afraid, because most everybody knows it anyhow. You think you're hiding something from everyone, but like in a small town, small county, everyone mainly knows what you're doing to begin with. You're not going to hide it. You can't be a closet drunk. You can't be a closet drug addict for a long period of time. And the best way to deal with it is to talk about it. Yes, you're going to be judged. You're going to be put down. But Lord have mercy, it'll make you feel a whole lot better. It'll make you feel good. You're still going to have the critics. That you're an addict, you're addicted, you're too far gone, no use to save you, you're not going to be saved. What you do is prove them wrong. You prove them wrong. The perception of whether, or stigma, whether people say it's a judicial problem or it's a health problem. You know, everybody's got an opinion. But I feel that it's a health problem. People have run afoul of the law. It's a sad situation. The perception is that, you know, lock them up and throw away the key. They're no good to society. You know, God didn't make no junk. You know, it don't take but one wrong turn. You go from hero to zero. And some of these people have done that. That's all they've done. They've took one wrong turn. And it takes several turns to get back to hero. But I've had my demons also. And I'm living proof it can be done.
They go into the program and you know, they've, you know, mom and grandma and everybody they burnt those bridges, and they're mad at them, so they've been told God is done with you and you can forget it. And you come into those programs and get some hope. You know what, maybe God's not mad at me. Maybe I can come through this. Yeah. Critical. Yeah, and for the family, that's a different hope. Explaining to them that, they can get better. Well, why haven't they yet? They stole my money and did this and did that, and they don't care, and I can't believe they've done this. They're never gonna recover. I'm like, well, yeah, actually they can. And then we tell them, hey, we've been through this, they can recover. They have to want to change, but we can help them see the need for change. Yeah, because and just seeing one person change, because it's the ripple effect. If the guy stops drinking, he stops beating his wife, and so her quality of life changes dramatically, and the kids' quality of life changes. I mean, we've seen this, and the in-laws' quality of life changes dramatically, and his parents' quality of life changes dramatically, because when the addict is suffering in an active addiction, man, the people who care about that person, they're directly affected. So if you can change that, you can change everyone in that person's circle of influence.
In the journey of recovery, probably one part of that understanding is that the past betrayals and poor choices, et cetera, over and over again has been the drug making those decisions. It's been the addiction. It hasn't. And as mentioned earlier, if the person who's going through recovery or is at that, right at the the doorstep of recovery, if they truly are looking for help and are truly looking to recover. And I can't say that all will go through a successful recovery, because it's for the wrong reasons. But that's going to be, as mentioned, a large percentage, probably the majority of those, despite their past and despite where they've been, if they can get through recovery and get weaned away from the opioids, and then have if it was legitimate pain that began their journey, if those pains can be, whether it's physical, emotional, actually, but if those pains can be addressed appropriately, that the old person that you once knew can start to come back out, and life will always be for them, or it's always going to be a challenge, as we just talked about. The addictive behavior doesn't go away. There's still a daily challenge of making a choice not to go back down that road. But I could share a story of someone who was really caught into addiction and has been in prison and all that, and he got some help from a small group of folks who came beside him and really, provided things for him, helped him kind of get back on his feet, helped him find work, and he's dealing with trying to patch up some of the bridges that were burned in his past, and he's reconnected with his family, and there's others who he's still trying to reconnect with. But every day, he's making good choices, better choices. He now has his own business, and so I just say that there are those cases. There are examples of people who were in a really bad spot, but again, it's the support system, it's the weaning away, it's addressing some of those, and if all those things can be done appropriately, there's hope for a lot of people that they can restore their life, they can be productive people and responsible people again. But it's a huge Goliath to take down, but it is possible, and we've seen it happen.
They started to get really excited when they saw that for the first time in many people's history, they had just seen this continual get arrested for drug charge, go to jail, come out, and because you haven't treated their substance use disorder, they're going to go back to using, going to go back to committing crimes. And they started seeing that cycle break for the first time in many people's lives. And they were really excited. You know, just story after story of people being healthy, people working again. I mean, many communities, employers can't get employees for their jobs, all these job openings, and it's because they can't get people that'll pass a drug test. So, but if you get them help, you know, at these critical junctures, then you can get them better, and then they can be, your whole community will benefit by people being healthier and working and contributing.
Harm reduction, for those who may not be familiar with it, is basically putting actions in place that reduce negative consequences of high-risk behavior. For example, if you get in a car, you wear a seatbelt. You make sure that your car has an annual inspection. You check the air pressure. Those are all things that you do to make sure that vehicle is as safe as possible, when we know that car accidents are one of the top killers in the United States every year. So we know it's a high-risk behavior, but we are willing to participate in that high-risk behavior because we have an end game. It may be to get to work, it may be to go see grandkids, it may be to go to church, it may be to go to the grocery store. High-risk behavior, things in place to reduce that high risk, to make sure that vehicle operates as safely as possible, because we have an end game. The same way if you go to the beach or you're out in the yard and you use sunscreen, or if you're fixing a casserole to take to a friend who's sick, you want to make sure all the ingredients are fresh and that the milk you use is not expired, right? So expiration dates, that's harm reduction. So we engage in harm reduction every day as normal folks. But the work that we do specifically applies the harm reduction philosophy and model to people who engage in high-risk behaviors such as using drugs. So we do things to not make drug consumption safe, but safer, to reduce the risk of that high-risk behavior, ultimately to extend health and to extend life. Because we know that the only person who cannot recover from substance use disorder is someone who's dead. So our goal by implementing harm reduction strategies is to keep that person alive and as healthy as possible for as long as possible until that next positive step happens.
I didn't care who I hurt, I didn't care who it hurt. As long as I knew I was gonna get high, it didn't matter what I was gonna do. I didn't care about anything. I would steal from anybody just to get, I just did not care. That was all I cared about. It was my life. My partner at the time, we ended up splitting up. We had a home together. I ended up losing my home to foreclosure, losing my car, everything because of my addiction. That's when I realized this is real. This is something I can't get myself out of.
She worked 3 jobs. She had a beautiful home. She had a beautiful new baby. She worked at the same place for 13 years. The first sign that I had, my mom was dying, and we were kind of watching after her, and some of her pain medication got gone. I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't want to think that, you know, so I just ignored it, like a lot of moms probably would. You just ignore it. The day that I realized that there was a problem was the day $200 got missing out of my pocketbook. So as a mother, I had friends who had children that were addicts, and they said they had to sleep with their pocketbook, but I said, I'm not sleeping with my pocketbook, right? So I was on my way to eat breakfast that morning and realized in my wallet, $200 was gone, cash money. That was the day that it smacked me in the face and broke my heart. Because you think about it, she had a home, she had a car, she had a truck, she had a motorcycle, she had a great job. And when I went and picked her up to the first detox place, she carried everything that she owned in a trash bag. As a mother, that kills you, knowing that she had worked so hard and that everything that she owned now was in a garbage bag.
Horribleness. Because they're gonna lose everything. You know, if they don't have a family, they're gonna hurt their parents, who, you know, raised this child to be this person, and that's not who that they are. People think that they can, or, you know, it's not gonna affect me. I'm not gonna turn into that person. I'm not gonna lose my job. I'm not gonna lose my family. I'm never gonna do those things to my kids. You will. Whether you are right now, you're going to. And just like Joe, he'll say, I don't mean to hurt you, or I didn't mean to lie to our kids, you know, for example. And I know deep down that he didn't mean that, but he's still gonna do it. Whether he's took something from the house, or whether he took money out of my wallet, or he stayed gone for 3 days and I had no idea where he was at. Deep down, I know he understands that that's wrong, and he wishes he didn't do that. But when you are, especially when you do opiates, it's not necessarily you want to get high. They don't want to get sick. So they're going to do whatever they have to do to not be sick. And that's just how it is.
And then when we had our children, I had to deal with opioid abuse and the feeling of emptiness, not knowing if your child's coming home, not knowing when the sheriff will pull up in your driveway to tell you that something bad has happened. I've been there. I've had some bad experiences myself with the drug situation. Things have just hit home really, really, really bad. But thank God, through treatment, intervention, and the good Lord above, everything's good now.
Passionate about this because I've dealt with addiction myself for a long time. I've been in recovery since 2009, thank the Lord. And, you know, having lived that and having felt the misery and the suffering that it can bring, I'm driven to help other folks not have to experience that.
I'd hurt my back while working, and started off on painkillers, you know, for my back, and I was never the type to go to the doctor, so I self-medicated. Pain pills took away my pain, and I just got that high feeling. But from detox, after a while, I finally started going to the doctor and found out, you know, after years of my back hurting, finally found out it was, you know, I'd slipped disc, got pinched nerves, had arthritis, I had deteriorating knees from just constant work, because I never missed a day. I worked sick, or whatever, you know, I was always working. And after a while, that's the pills led to other things. Taking pills wasn't working, so So I started snorting them. Snorting them wasn't working, so I started shooting them. Then the pills didn't work, and the heroin took over. And then it was just, I mixed everything out. In my recovery, I learned addiction, my mental illness, I guess, does play a lot with my addiction. Was other than the opiates, it was benzos. I'd be depressed, so I mixed my heroin with Xanax and nodding out. And didn't need to be passed out. I didn't really like it, but then I started doing meth to keep myself awake. And get tired of being awake and uppity, and it just back to downers. For me, that's what my start was my back injury. So almost 20 years I've been an addict. I was 14, I got introduced to Xanax, so taking Xanax here and there. That's probably 12, 13 is when I first took my first drink of alcohol. But then when I lost my grandma, it was just when that was when it all really hit me hard. Or it hit me hard, and that's just when I went, pretty much all I was drinking, drugs. I drank every night for when my grandma first passed away for a few weeks, maybe a month. And then it was starting, 10 lunchtime, I would start getting drunk until that night for about 2 or 3 years. But I could let the alcohol, I'm not gonna be an alcoholic, quit that. But it was just hard to quit the drugs. It grabbed a hold of me and didn't let go for a long time. It was about 20 years or so. I've been an addict, but been a recovering addict for a little over 13 months.
One of his goals was to go attend AA meetings once a week. Never been to an AA meeting. So I go to this AA meeting with this client that I'm working with, and I see people that I know, and I thought, well, this is going to be very awkward for that person. And I went up to them and I said, I can sit outside if you would feel better me not hearing, you share your story. And they said, oh no, this is an open meeting, and we want you to stay in. You're more than welcome to stay in. So I stayed in. And I cannot say enough positive things about AA, because that first meeting, people were so open. They were so candid about their struggles with alcohol. And so we started going every week. Right? And I got to know the people a little bit more. And people were sharing their stories. One of the stories was that they would buy pints, because pints were easy to stack, and you could hide it a whole lot easier than buying a bottle. And how people would look at what's on sale, not just to see what was cheap, because we wanted to get high. We wanted to, as these stories continue to develop and are shared, I realized that they are the same stories as mine. So sharing that you are an alcoholic is not something that you're proud of, but it's something that there in that AA meeting, people there are supportive, and it was through it was through that client that I was working with that I admitted, my own lack of control over alcohol.
Then the folks who are still in addiction could see there's hope. All these people are clean now. They're sober. They've been able to move on. Maybe there's hope for me. I remember, this is several years ago, I was attending Green Street United Methodist in Winston. And we had a young man that showed up. Literally, he was just walking the neighborhood. And one of our pastors asked him, just kind of like what you do when you see somebody, hey, how you doing? And Mike said, I'm not doing real well. And to our pastor's credit, he said, well, sit down, tell me about it. And they just sat down right there on the front steps. And Mike was literally at the point where he was trying to figure out whether he was going to live or die. He'd no job, divorced, he'd lost his kids, no place to stay. He was as far down as he'd ever been and completely strung out on crack. So I don't know if I want to keep on. So we brought him into the church. We were having dinner that night. We fed him, we prayed with him, got him some clean clothes, worked with some of the other nonprofits in the community to get him a place to stay and try to help him start that road to recovery. And over the course of a year, I watched Mike. He stayed sober. He stayed off of the drugs. He stayed away from his old running buddies. In fact, he ended up with a couple of jobs. One he was working all day and one he was working all night. I was like, Mike, dude, when do you get time off? You need rest. He's like, you don't understand. In your world, you need rest. In my world, the only thing that I need is to be so exhausted at the end of the day that all I can do is just climb into bed and crash. Because if I got any free time and any free energy, I might end up with some of my old buddies. And before I know it, I'm right back down in the gutter. He says, I've got to work my tail off. And he did. To his credit, he did. Got himself an apartment. He was so proud to be able to say, yeah, I'm standing on my own now. He'd gotten off the bus and was walking back to his apartment, and he sees two kids over here working on their car, hood up, both of them just down in there. And as he walks by, they both look up, and he went to wave and realized it was his two sons. They thought he was dead. Their mom had said, your dad overdosed, he's dead. It was easier for them. Mike says, I don't blame her for telling them that. It was probably the best thing for them. He said, but now I'm at a place in my life where I feel like I could actually step back into the role of dad and have something to offer my kids. And then God gives them to me. They're living in the same apartment complex that he was in, and he hadn't seen them until the day he felt like, I'm ready. And then God gave him his kids back. He has stayed sober all of these years. But it took people getting involved and showing him some love and then holding him accountable. Every week we had a community meal. And each week we would pray with Mike and say, all right, we're going to see you next week, right? You're going to come back. Each week he would come back. So, tell us what's happening with your life. At one point he thanked me for what I had done for him. I'm like, Mike, I didn't do anything. I ate with you and I prayed with you. He said, you were the only one praying for me. Do you get it? You were the only one praying for me. Now I've got more people praying for me, but you started it. And I needed that. I needed somebody to show me that they cared. And it cut me to the core to think that much love and concern, enough to say, I will have a meal with you and I will pray with you. That much. and it made that kind of impact on his life.
I was raised to believe that you can accomplish anything you desire if you want it bad enough and you're willing to pay the price. You know, recovery is possible. As a community, it's in our best interest to seize every opportunity to facilitate recovery and help our residents return to health and productivity, gain employment, and help families become whole again. But just how do we do that? Treatment works, but not always on the first time. And what's good for one is not good for all. Treatment is only the first step on the path to recovery. In the second episode, we'll explore treatment, what's available locally, and other options that are worth considering.